Once upon a time, there was a farmer and his wife who had a daughter. She was courted by a gentleman who would come to their farmhouse every evening for supper. The daughter's job was to go down to the cellar and draw beer for the meal. One evening, while drawing beer, she noticed a mallet stuck in one of the ceiling beams. Although it had been there for a long time, she had never noticed it before. Her imagination started to run wild, and she became worried. She thought about the potential danger of having the mallet there. What if she and her suitor got married, had a son, and he grew up to come down to the cellar to draw beer? What if the mallet fell on his head and killed him? The thought of such a tragedy made her put down the candle and the jug and sit down to cry. Upstairs, her family began to wonder why she was taking so long to draw the beer. Her mother went down to check on her and found her crying with beer spilling on the floor. The daughter explained her fears about the mallet, and her mother started crying too. The father, curious about their absence, also went down to the cellar. He found all three of them crying and the beer making a mess on the floor. They explained their fears about the mallet, and the father joined in the crying. The gentleman, growing tired of waiting alone in the kitchen, decided to go down to the cellar and see what was happening. There, he found the three of them crying and the beer flooding the floor. Perplexed, he asked them why they were crying and why they were letting the beer spill. The mother, father, and daughter all explained their fear of the mallet falling on their future son's head and killing him. They began crying even harder. The gentleman couldn't contain his laughter. He reached up and pulled out the mallet, then said, "I've traveled far and wide, but I've never met three bigger sillies than you. I'll continue my travels, and when I find three even bigger sillies, I'll come back to marry your daughter." With that, he bid them farewell and left, leaving the girl heartbroken. As the gentleman traveled, he came across a peculiar sight. He found a cottage with grass growing on its roof. The woman who lived there was trying to coax her cow to climb a ladder onto the roof to eat the grass. She explained her plan to tie a string around the cow's neck, pass it down the chimney, and attach it to her wrist so that she could control the cow's movements from inside the house. The gentleman tried to reason with her, suggesting she cut the grass and feed it to the cow. However, she insisted on her plan and managed to get the cow onto the roof, tying the string as she had described. The gentleman continued his journey, but not far from the cottage, he heard a commotion. The cow had fallen off the roof, and the string around its neck had strangled it. The weight of the cow had pulled the woman up the chimney, and she was stuck halfway, smothered in soot. The gentleman couldn't help but shake his head at the absurdity of it all. Further down the road, the gentleman stopped at an inn for the night. They had no vacant rooms except for a double-bedded one, which he agreed to share with another traveler. The other man was friendly and pleasant, and they chatted as they prepared for bed. In the morning, the gentleman was surprised to see the other man struggling to put on his trousers. He watched as the man hung his trousers on the knobs of the chest of drawers and attempted to jump into them repeatedly. Confused, the gentleman asked what he was doing. The man replied that trousers were the most awkward type of clothing, taking him nearly an hour to put on each morning, and he would get so hot in the process. He couldn't understand who had invented such a bothersome garment. The gentleman burst into laughter and showed him the correct way to put on trousers. The man was grateful for the lesson, admitting he would never have figured it out on his own. Another encounter with a silly person. Continuing his journey, the gentleman arrived in a village where a crowd of people had gathered around a pond. They were armed with rakes, brooms, and pitchforks, attempting to fish something out of the water. The gentleman inquired about the commotion and was told that the moon had fallen into the pond, and they were struggling to rake it out. Amused, the gentleman tried to explain that it was just the moon's reflection in the water, but the villagers wouldn't listen. Instead, they berated him and accused him of being foolish. Realizing that he had encountered yet another group of sillies, the gentleman decided to return home. He married the farmer's daughter, and they lived happily ever after. In the end, the gentleman realized that while there were many silly people in the world, he had found the perfect match in the farmer's daughter, and together they lived a contented and joyful life.